Let's do it live on a Thursday edition of the program. I am merely Bo. Gibbe is here.
Hi.
The G-Man is here. Dr. J is here. Z is northbound and down, we assume. I assume it all went well down there. We'll see. So that's where we are on this.
I think they had to play again today. It was like day 3 of their Ryder Cup. I think there was 18 this morning and then a drive home.
Ooh, that's a long day.
Can't wait for him to do the
5+
show
hours.
laying on the floor in the studio tomorrow because his back's out.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm sure that'll go well.
I do think any injury that incurs while on vacation, no sympathy.
None.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of it. You understand that it's just part of it.
Now, going into it, I did feel bad. And I was like,
sure.
I don't think the car ride right into golf is going to be good. You probably should have just gone down Monday, slept in a bed, got up in the morning, and had ample time to stretch and work things out and then go play.
Yeah.
But I believe the kid screwed that up.
He did, yeah. We are 1 week away. We are 1 week away.
Finally?
The NFL draft, day one of the
Thank
NFL
God.
draft will be a week from today. It'll happen in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it's go time. I know we have a big portion of Andrew Berry's availability we're going to play for you as the program goes along. Dane Bugler going to join us at 2 o'clock, so you have that to look forward to, which is nice. Get his kind of final thoughts. The Beast is here. This is an incredible binder the G-Man put together of the Beast. It's I've never seen anything quite like it. This is a great job out of the G-Man here to put this thing together.
We have a rule in the building.
Yeah.
In this little cubby that we work out of, we're like, no printing till after 5 o'clock. When people aren't around and we can literally print out an entire.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It's categorized: quarterbacks, running backs, receiver. You got the page number here. Everything's laminated. I mean, it's an incredible job, really incredible job out of the G-Man, and of course on Dane on the Beast. But yeah, you're a week away, and we're going to play Andrew here in about 25 minutes or so. It's been a really quiet run up to this, and one of the things that jumps out to me was, and Z and I talked about this when we were in Indy, like usually there is a consensus that forms in Indianapolis that is it's consensus, and then it becomes print it, write it in Sharpie, like this is what's going to happen. And there's countless stories of this, whether it's Herbert to the Chargers or Kyler to the Cardinals. There's Tua Tagovailoa to Miami. There's 100 of these stories that come out of the draft, and they feel like they're rubber stamped and they're fact, and away you go. And when we left the combine this year, it was Tennessee is not taking a quarterback at 1, and the Browns are taking one at 2. And here we sit a week out. Tennessee is taking Cam Ward. I mean, Cam Ward is on Fortnite saying 2 of his 4 favorite receivers in the league are 2 members of the Tennessee Titans receiving corps, and his favorite running backs of the league are their 2 running backs.
Correct.
So he's going 1, which nobody thought coming out of the combine. And I don't know if we're going what we're doing it to. We're gonna listen to Andrew Berry. The majority of the questions are about Travis Hunter because the consensus in NFL media is that we're taking Travis Hunter at 2. But there has been nothing that's come out of this building. Not even, I think about all of the reporting that's happened in the lead up to this. I haven't heard anybody say, and I'm talking about people locally on the beat, I'm talking national people say, my sources in the building are telling me they're leaning this way. I haven't seen that once. We've seen it with other organizations, but I've not heard it once out of this one. So when people say, I think they're going to do this, or it's guesswork. That's it. It's eliminating other options, process of elimination, and then guesswork on what they might do. And it's looking for parsing through a bunch of comments like Andrew had today and trying to find some sort of nugget of truth in there that could lead you to one belief or another. But the reality is Andrew is an expert at talking and answering questions without giving you anything in terms of where the organization's headed, which is what you want him to do. You don't want him leading you in any way direction if you're in the organization. You don't want anyone knowing what you're going to do. But to that end, I just think it's been a very quiet, from our vantage, we're picking number 2 overall, and it's just been quiet in the lead up. I think some of it is, it feels like there's a consensus that it's Cam and then a dip to Shador. But maybe that's it, that there isn't like, hey, if we're picking number 2 in last year's draft and Caleb Williams is going number 1 to Tennessee, then you're going to have a healthy debate every day about Drake May or Jaden Daniels. But we never had that.
No.
If you were going to the quarterback, you're going with Shador. If Cam's gone, and if not, then you go with Travis or Abdul, and that's it.
Yeah. I think the lack of top-level candidates to go in the first round at quarterback is affecting this. But I think it goes further back. Think about free agency. We had 72 hours where free agency was completely nuts.
Yep.
And then it was done. Like last year at the last week in March, we were still signing impact free agents.
Yeah, right.
There was still a lot of movement in the NFL.
Yep.
NFL free agency tampering started on Monday at noon, and by Friday at like 5 o'clock, with the exception of a couple dominoes that fell later on with the quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Darnold, but I think Darnold was even in that window, that initial window. By Friday at 5 o'clock, it was over. Yeah,
you're right. It was.
So then what?
Came and went.
And I know we are drafted out. I think the fan base is drafted out. Like, we are ready to pick some guys, and then let's see them on the field.
Yeah.
Even if they're just stretching and going through positional work, let's see them in a Browns uniform. My big question is what comes next. Like, the offseason's been so quiet. What am I going to talk about when the draft's over?
Yeah, I think what you're going to find out by the time you get to, through next weekend, then at least you will know the direction that you're headed and what does next season look like. And then you can start putting those pieces into dude, we need players. We need a bunch of players. We need a bunch of offensive players.
Yes.
I mean, a ton of them. You need multiple receivers. You need a back. You need some depth on the offensive line, potentially a future tackle, left or right. You have quarterback. We're going to draft a quarterback.
There's arguably 7 spots on the offense that you're looking to add pieces to.
Yeah, and some of them, this isn't depth pieces. Like, you need dudes.
Yeah.
2 and 33 need to be dudes. They need to be people who could come in here and start right away. That's 2 and 33. That's the job. So 67 maybe 2, depending on where it is. So it's a massive draft for us. It's one where you got to get it right, especially at those high value picks. And it's one that's necessary because you just have been not having first round picks for 3 years. You feel the brunt of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, you can feel the excitement starting to build around here. I know that it's a big week down at Huntington Bank Field with the crew game on Saturday against Miami FC, but then draft night concert with Journey. It could be 40,000, 50,000 people at that.
I mean, that would be a scene, wouldn't it? What's our weather look like Saturday?
Not great.
Yeah, not great.
Is that at 4 o'clock?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a chance the rain could be done with by that point, but it's not great.
93% chance of rain?
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
Breezy in the morning, cloudy. It just has a couple showers, though, so it doesn't seem like it's like thunder.
I think the bulk of the rain is going to be overnight and in the morning till midday, and then some rain on and off in the afternoon.
Yeah. As long as it's not lightning.
Correct.
Not that anyone wants to sit out and get wet, but it's not terribly cold. Yeah, it's really like 2 days out, 24 hours out is when you have a really...
I mean, tomorrow's fantastic.
Tomorrow looks spectacular, yeah. Yeah, when I used to do local news, I used to always give the meteorologist a bad time and say, I was at Channel 10, CBS affiliate down in Columbus, and they would always, like the meteorologist, he's since passed, but great guy named Chris Bradley, and he would always do this thing where they had like 10-day forecast. I'm like, come on, what are you doing? 10 days. What are you talking about?
How about we just try to get the next 5?
What are you doing?
Or the next 48 hours?
You put your kids' education fund how far out? 4? 3?
I think 3, maybe 2.
I feel pretty good. At one point, I finally got to be honest. I feel pretty good about 48 hours. About 48 hours out. What are you doing at the 10-day then? Looking at a 10-day forecast. Who knows, man?
Yeah, exactly. I know the forecast, we were looking it up earlier. Green Bay is going to be in the upper 50s.
Yeah.
It's going to go down to 41 at night, Thursday night.
How does that city host it? You've been there. I haven't. I don't understand.
It's a great question. I mean, I think they're more than capable of hosting it.
What I'm curious, it's a small town, right? So what is the Ohio equivalent of Green Bay, Wisconsin?
I'm not sure.
If they don't have the Packers, like, what does it feel like? It's much smaller than, like, like Toledo or Canton or all that, right?
Yeah.
Is it like Massillon?
Maybe.
It's smaller than Youngstown, right?
What's the Green Bay? Okay. So I lived in Springfield, Illinois, the state capital of Illinois. And the population was 125,000. Green Bay's population in 2023 was 105,744.
105.
Yeah.
All right, let's cross-reference Ohio population, cities by population. So 105 would put okay, so I bet it's probably most like Canton. So Canton's around 70. Parma's 78, and with we had businesses there for a long time, but it just still, Parma feels like Cleveland to me. I know it's not, but it all just kind of feels like Cleveland City.
Yeah.
And I would say that about, all of the towns that are right around downtown. Like,
it's tough because there are some hotels near the stadium, but most of the hotels are like in the downtown area of Green Bay. And that's a solid 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're walking.
Yeah. I bet it's like Canton. I bet it has a Canton feel. Like Canton.
I just
North
searched
Canton,
it, and it says Toledo.
Toledo's 270,000 people, though, Kev.
Yeah.
I know, but this is saying that both cities have a population around 300,000 people.
So Green Bay Metro?
Yeah.
It must be Metro. So this is the other thing that's tricky. Like Toledo Metro is 265, or right around 300,000. I'm sorry, that's Toledo City population, is that? So that's just barely below Cincinnati, which is 311. It's barely below Cleveland, which is 362. That's city population versus metro. That's where you run into trouble, is like our metro is still the biggest in Ohio, but the city population is small. Like Columbus City is 900,000. It's by far the biggest from a city.
Maybe it's Toledo. I don't.
You've been to both.
I feel like Toledo's a little bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, Toledo's got more of a downtown area than Green Bay.
By the look of it, I'm just looking like images. To me, it's on the water, but it looks like Canton to me. Size.
Yeah, I might go more toward Canton.
That type
with the
of feel.
downtown, and the drive up. You're flying. I'm fascinated what the travel will be. We have one of our camera people and one of our social media people are going up. Mm-hmm. I think Dom's going from PR.
Okay.
And I want to say if their flight out the next morning is through Appleton, which is what we used to fly into before the Green Bay Airport expanded.
Okay.
We would fly into Appleton, which was a 35-40-minute drive. And we would stay. There's a college in Appleton, Wisconsin. I can't remember the name of that. I can't remember anything today. And we would stay there. Most NFL teams on the road stayed there. Before there was really a downtown area. Yeah, I think it was Lawrence University.
Enough from the Clown agrees. He says Canton. The equivalent would be Canton is the one that has that.
Yeah, it's a cool little. The downtown area has actually gotten a lot better, but again, I don't. It's about the area around the stadium.
Yeah.
So, I don't. I have a hard time visioning how it's going to look because the majority of those parking lots down there become big tailgate areas, but you're going to need that space for people to watch the draft.
Yeah, sure you are.
They do have those houses by Lambeau Field, though, too, that
right.
I know Good Karma Brands has transitioned into the Tundra Trio to bring in partners and stuff like that, so there's going to be that area, too, for people to
that area,
hang out.
Yeah, it depends which way the hangar that they're building faces.
Yeah.
So, I just see this. This from Schefter. We've announced that Joe Thomas. Well, we haven't, but the NFL has eliminated put out their picks of the people who will be making the picks in the second, third round. So the Great Hoff will be making one of our picks.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's doing some other stuff. I feel like on that Friday night in Green
right
Bay
in the
as
backyard. So it's like he's
one
of one of 4 Hall of Famers who will be making. Jerry Kramer. Wow, legendary Jerry Kramer. Holy smokes. He's got to be getting up there. Jerry Kramer, Dave Robinson, Lynn Swan, the Hoff. Those are your Hall of Famers who will be making picks for the teams in the second and third round. So,
89 for Jerry Kramer.
89? Yeah. Had to be. It's Lombardi. It's all that. That's where it's at. So, a couple of interesting notes. This from NFL Research. Every NFL team still owns its first-round selection. It marks the first year in the common era that all 32 teams possess their first-round pick at the start of the league year. At least one team has traded up into the top 15 in 24 straight drafts. There's been an average of 1.5 trade-ups into within the top 10 since 2011. Why haven't we seen any trades? Do you think we see more or less than 5 on night 1? Why haven't we seen any trades? I think because of the quarterback thing.
Yeah,
I think that's
100%.
I think if there were 4 or 5 quarterbacks that people looked at and said, yeah, those are NFL quarterbacks, I think you'd see trades. But because it's Cam and Shador, and then I think people tried to talk themselves into Jackson Dart or Jaylen Milro or whoever as Tyler Shuck as a third, fourth, first rounder. Maybe all those guys go. Who knows? But there isn't. I mean, last year you had Caleb, Jaden, why am I blanking on New England? Drake May. Penix was viewed as a first rounder. Nobody thought he'd go 8, but he was viewed as a first rounder. You had J.J. McCarthy. You had Bo Nix. You had 6 first-round quarterbacks. Yeah. When you have 6 first-round quarterbacks, that's when you have movement. I don't think we'll see a bunch of moves. I don't. I think especially if we don't pick Shador at 2 and he goes 9 to the Saints, then I don't think you're going to see much.
I think the QB class not being considered first-round talents, I don't think a lot of people are saying not a lot of a deep wide receiver class as we've had the last few years. There's some really good wide receivers, but not the depth and not the high-impact guys going in the top 10 or top 15. No. You might be able to make an argument that by the end of the round 1, more tight ends and or more running backs go than wide receivers.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, Trav's an athlete. I don't know if however you want to quantify him.
Yeah.
But yeah, him, McMillan, and then it'll be the bottom half.
I've seen McMillan go as low as 20.
Yeah. Ibuka and Borden and those guys at the bottom, hard to see. There's a Texas receiver although he got in trouble last week, but I mean, there's some of that. So
I think you see a lot of movement starting maybe right before the Squealers pick at 21.
Do you think even if Shador's already picked or only if Shador is still available?
I think just in general. I think especially if some of those skill position guys fall.
Yeah.
You know the linemen are going to be there. But from a skill position standpoint, if one of the big tight ends falls, or like Omari and Hampton, who seems to be a guy that's not going to get past, maybe Denver at 20, that people are going to come up and look at that. Yeah, right there.
Well, this thing,
carpal tunnel.
You really will. This thing, I just was curious because to kind of buttress our point, I wanted to look at Dane's top 100. So through 32 picks, this is what you would consider glamour. So he has Genty third overall. So Trav is his QB. He has him as cornerback 1, but I think he's also wide receiver 1. So Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. Let's just do glamour positions. Do we want to classify edge as glamour position?
No.
Okay.
I would say offensive skill.
Offensive skill. Okay, because that gets what gets folks excited. So Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, McMillan, Cam Ward, Matthew Golden, out of Texas, kid I was talking about out of Texas. It's 5. Burden at 6. Ibuka 7. Amari and Hampton 8. That's it.
Like, even if you add tight ends, there might be 2.
Yeah. No, I mean,
or is that not even in his top?
He's got 2 tight ends in there. He's got Tyler Warren at 8 and Colston Loveland at 11.
10 guys?
10 guys. Edge there's quite a few edge. He's got 2, 4, 6 edge in that group. in that top 32 area. He has Shador quarterback number 2, 34th overall. And I remember that from the combine. He was a little bit low on him. Jackson Dart is 49. Tyler Shuck at 50. Where does he have? Who's the next quarterback? Oh, Milro at 73. Ewers at 86.
Friday night might be
the night.
The night that you're going to see a ton of movement based on how many quarterbacks are left.
Yeah, and the other thing you're going to see on Friday night is you're going to see you'll see a heavy dose of all of that running back talent. I mean, the quarterback, running back, both Buckeyes will go in the second round probably, both running backs. You'll see Emeka Boo, who's not a first-rounder. He'll be a second-rounder. So you're going to see all those quarterbacks, running backs. If you're a fan of college football, you love the draft, Friday night's going to feel like a little bit of a win. Speaking of college football, Lee Corso, the legendary ESPN broadcaster, former coach, he has entertained fans for 38 years across all college football, will make his final headgear pick on College Game Day on Saturday, August 30th. This isn't official yet, but it's going to be in Columbus, clearly. They play Texas.
Yeah.
So that's where that will be. It's also the symmetry of it. The first headgear game was in Columbus. First time he put it on was in Columbus. He put on Brutus. My hunch is he will end.
This all makes sense then, because I'm like, it's kind of strange that they're bringing him back just for the first game and then going, all right.
Yeah, so they bring him back, pay homage, one last headgear game. It's the same place as the first one. My guess is he puts on Brutus just as he did all those years ago. I think 95 was the first time he ever did headgear. Herb Street's told the story about it many times. They were getting – Herb Street's wife is a former Buckeye cheerleader, and Corso asked him, do you think I could get a hold of that Brutus head? And Herbie was like, I don't know. I don't know. That might be kind of sacred. I don't know if we can like get a hold of the Brutus head. I don't even know where do they keep it? How many Brutus heads are there? Like, what are we doing here? And he spoke with his wife, and they were able to do it, and he came up with the idea, and that's how it all came about. Have you ever seen it live, him put it on?
No.
Trying to explain to someone who does not watch college football, or is, let's say it's somebody from Australia, although our Australian folks certainly have a pretty good idea about it, but to say that like tens of thousands of people will stand around and watch a show that is made for television, really with the idea of they're waiting for an elderly man to put a mascot head on his head, and that when that happens, they go nuts. It's a tough sell. The fact that it's become this is pretty remarkable.
The fact you talk about watching the now 3-hour program,
yeah,
but you're there 3 or 4 hours prior to the start of the 3-hour program.
Yes, you're there at sunup.
Yeah,
in a lot of instances.
Yeah,
you're there the whole time. No, it's crazy, and that's really the only payoff. This is the other thing. Until they landed McAfee, which they kind of stumbled into, McAfee, Corso was the only one who would play to the crowd.
Yeah,
the rest of them don't. The rest of them make a TV show, and then Corso plays to the audience. Remember, he'll like pump up the team that he's going to pick all that. So it wasn't until they landed McAfee that he plays to the crowd the whole show and like keeps them in it. Up until that point, though, they didn't do that. It was all on Corso to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, he's worn Freddie, Bowling Green, BG
was
Northern
there
Illinois, the first time that Game Day ever came to a MAC school.
Here's the other thing that it did. Back in the old days when they had physical media guides, when they would show like how your team is covered, the picture was College Game Day. Was on the media guide somewhere. It just was like we've made it, boys, when they're there. I just saw Montana State tweeted out a photo of him at the Montana State-Montana game from a couple of years ago with the headgear. So, like, it's just one of those things that if you ever get him there, you remember it forever. So,
how about this on the Lee Corso thing? I did not know this.
Okay.
So every week, Lee Corso strictly uses a pencil.
Yes, number 2 pencil. Yep.
A number 2 pencil. Why? In the offseason, he is the director of business development for Dixon Ticonderoga.
What?
That's right. This was in the release that ESPN put out.
Really? I didn't know that.
Dixon Ticonderoga is the Florida-based manufacturer of writing and art products. And Corso's connection with the company is an off-season role separate from his work as ESPN analyst.
Really?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
wild. He played at Florida State. He's an FSU guy, played at Florida State, so he was around a lot, especially when Bowden was still at the peak of his powers. He was around a lot. Yeah, I had Feinbaum on this morning, and as I do every Thursday, and we were talking about it, and he said, he's probably long overdue for it.
I think we all
know
time.
that, and I did think that over the last 4 or 5 years, as Herbie has really propped him up and I think it's been very endearing the way Kirk has taken care of him. I think it's really cool and very loving the way that he's taken care of him on game day through the years. But also I understand from Lee, I never begrudged any of it because I always thought, like, man, this is his why. This is what he loves to do. Like, it's not hurting the show in any way, and they've limited the amount he was on in recent years, and we all knew he was 89 years old. Like, come on. But I didn't think it ever hurt the show, and I think it's still inside the NBA is a more fun show, but I think College Game Day is still the very best example of what a pregame show can be at its best, which is setting the emotional tone for the day, and setting how many kids over the last 20 years decided to go to school in the South based on what they saw on College Game Day. Just think about that. How many kids went to Clemson and Alabama and Auburn and all these places because you turn on a college football Saturday and you see the game later in the day, but you see College Game Day there, and it's 72 degrees in November, and everyone's dressed up, and everyone looks good, and you're like, I want to be a part of that. I just can't even imagine what the impact has been over the last 30 years on that show, and he's a central part of it.
Yeah.
So,
a great, like you said, them stumbling into McAfee.
Lottery ticket.
That will be that's the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like McAfee or not, he's the next Corso. In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and he was already doing it. What was the fact? That's why I said stumbled into him. Like, he wasn't even at ESPN when they first put him on. The first show McAfee did was at South Dakota State. It was South Dakota State against North Dakota State, and he wore a Venetieri jersey. That was the first one that he did. And I think Herb Street's son maybe was interning for McAfee on his show, and that's kind of what made it happen. And Herbie was a big proponent of bringing Pat on. It's worked. He brings an energy to it that was lacking. And yeah, he will be the next. I mean, you can see he's poised to be the next. Do you know the first game College Game Day ever took on the road for? Do you know what that was, Gibbe? First time College Game Day was on a road site?
I do not.
South Bend for Notre Dame, Florida State. Charlie Ward, 1993. Game of the century. Number 1 versus number 2.
Wow.
That was the first time they went on the road. Yep. And it wasn't, I do remember when it wasn't on the road every week. And then by within a couple of years, it was every week they were on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the ultimate moneymaker.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And congratulations to Greg Newsom. He got engaged, huh? How about that? Congratulations. Good job out of him. Those are your hot topics today, presented by University Hospitals, official healthcare provider of your Cleveland Browns. Coming up next, we head to the podium. Andrew Berry with his pre-draft press conference today. We will have that for you coming up next. We're off and running. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Add more fun to your fandom with the Ballybet Sportsbook app. Download today, get 50 back in bonus bets. You place your first wager of 10 or more. Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Now time to head from the podium. It's presented by Vivid Seats. Purchase your official fan experience package day for the ultimate game day. Here's Andrew Berry with his pre-draft press conference from earlier today.
This week's pretty exciting for our.
You're down.
We get our players back in the building. Obviously, draft weekend approaching, where at least as we sit here today, can add 10 rookie players to the roster, or drafted rookie players to the roster. So we're pretty pumped as we go into next week. As I always do at this time, I wanted to really thank our college scouts, who make a number of sacrifices over the calendar year, spend a ton of time away from their family, living out of hotels, really beating the bushes for prospects, getting to know them as players and people. And it's a bit of a thankless job, right? They're behind the scenes. They don't get a ton of credit, which is a big reason why on draft weekend we like to bring them out here to talk to you about the guys that we've picked. So you can hear from them, understand why we value their opinion so highly, and they get a little bit of credit, a little bit of notoriety for the work that they've been doing. I'd also like to thank Glenn Cook, Max Paulus, Megan Rock for their management of the process. Of course, Catherine Hickman and Andrew Healy for their work in all of our big decisions. Joy Topajcek and Kathleen Wood for their work in terms of our security and legal and player background. All of those individuals contribute above and beyond. So we're excited. We're ready to go. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Spoke to you at the league meetings about draft strategy. You said, after the pro days kind of come together, you formally draft strategy with all signs pointing to the Titans taking Cam Ward. Do you have that draft strategy in plan, if that was to happen?
So a big part of this, this week and then going into next week is what we call scenario planning and strategy planning. So we're really right in the thick of it, Daniel. And that's not to say that there hasn't been any thought of it at this point. That would be disingenuous. But we'll use the whole shot clock, so to speak. We don't have to start making decisions until really Thursday night, and so we'll use all the time afforded to us, and make sure that we have a thorough plan depending on what happens at number one.
See, Hunter, I guess he's talking about wanting to play basically all the time. Mm-hmm. And how do you see him? What about that? Is it practical in the NFL?
So I think one of the things that is you can't probably fully appreciate until you actually see Travis play live is just his elite conditioning. Going out and seeing him play at Colorado, he really never comes off the field, and it's unbelievable because there are more plays in a college game than there is a pro game, and it's like the guy he barely pants like that, like that type of thing. So it's quite incredible. That being said, what he would attempt to do has not been really done in our league, but we wouldn't necessarily put a cap or a governor in terms of what he could do. We would want to be smart in terms of how we started him out. I think I've mentioned before, we would see his first home as receiver and his second home, on the defense side of the ball.
That he brings.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, he has a number of rare qualities, but probably the rarest is his ability with the ball, his ball skills, and we would want to put him in a position that maximizes that ability.
How would you do meetings,
Andrew?
Yeah, I guess without getting too much into the specific planning, because he's not here. We have a decision, but that's something that's also unique, and it's something that, like I said, every team across the league would have to figure out.
Wake of you guys going out to Colorado, it seems like within the next day, everyone in the whole country was, Browns are taking Travis Hunter off the Shador trail.
It's funny how that works, huh?
And maybe off the Abdul Carter scent as well. So is that an accurate perception of where you guys are right now? Are you off of Shador, off of Abdul, and focusing on Travis?
Yeah, it's like what I mentioned with Daniel. we're still working through everything. We have not made a hard decision in terms of how we're going to utilize the number 2 pick. There are a number of guys that we like. Our travels, they were the logical touch points that you would make for all prospects who are worthy of being consideration that high in the draft. And that's just happened to be where I think maybe a lot of times Mary Kay just becomes like the last place that you stopped. But we're still working through everything.
At the combine, I know as a whole, you talked about this quarterback class and feeling like there are guys there who can be really good NFL players. I guess now that you're through the combine, you're through these pro days. Like, do you still feel like there are multiple guys with starting potential in this league that could be helpful to this team?
I do, actually. I think, we were actually talking about this yesterday in one of our strategy sessions, actually, Daniel, as you're on your phone. But I'm giving you a hard time. That I think that a lot of the quarterback position is, the environment that you put the individual in. Whether that's with teammates, schematically, what you ask them to do, and honestly, what you ask them to do early in their career. And I think you're starting to see it more and more across the league that quarterbacks can produce in a number of different ways. The way that Josh Allen produces is a lot different than the way that Brock Purdy produces. The way that the system that Tua runs is a lot different than the system that Lamar Jackson runs. And, I think it's of great importance for any organization bringing in a quarterback to understanding what that individual does well and how you both build an offense and design a scheme to accentuate that individual strength. Because I think as long as they have a level of baseline talent, you can have a productive player at the position as long as you're thoughtful in terms of building the environment around him.
Identifying the quarterback you want and when to take him, the biggest challenge of your draft?
I don't know that I would necessarily put it that way, Tony. Obviously quarterback's the most important position. I think the biggest thing that we're thinking about going into this draft is really just adding good players and good prospects. Not overthinking it that way. Can't necessarily dictate the draft, although certainly you have more influence when you're picking as high as we are this year. But we're really just looking to add good players.
Back Joe Flacco.
In terms of strategy, how much does your plans and what you've already done in free agency shape what you're doing in the draft, and then vice versa? How much will the draft then go into your plans in free agency?
There is some interplay. I wouldn't say that it's one that drives the other, but it could influence the level of investment that you would make at a certain position once you get to April. But that being said, depending on how the draft falls, our goal and our thought process is making sure that we can add as many players that we think can be, very high quality long-term contributors. And, sometimes, that may not be an apparent, need or an apparent, or maybe like an obvious pick at the spot, but just the player was too good to pass up.
Into this quarterback classes, it's not as strong as your typical quarterback classes. I'm not asking if you feel that way, but does bringing back Joe Flacco give you more latitude maybe to look at a guy through a more of a long-term lens, like a developmental lens? You can draft someone in the middle rounds that you can develop and just kind of have Joe keep the seat warm, as opposed to having the urgency of finding that guy in this draft and getting him on the field as quickly as possible.
No, I wouldn't say that that's the case at all, Daryl. We wouldn't consider, signing Joe as having any real impact in terms of how we would view taking a quarterback in the draft. We firmly believe that it's not about picking a player who's, ready to contribute now. It's about trying to find the player that you think is going to be the best if you have access to that player. And look, I think you can think about Patrick Mahomes sat his whole first year. Josh Allen, it really took to year 3 for him to become Josh Allen. Lamar probably hit the ground running pretty quickly. Jaylen Hurts, there were doubts about him until he probably hit year 3. So quarterbacks mature and grow at their own pace, and our thought isn't in terms of immediacy, but making the next long-term bet.
When it comes to the quarterback position, there's always so much said about this year's class versus next year's class, and sort of comparing how teams are already sort of projecting ahead. I guess I'm just curious from your guys' perspective. And it could be this year, but it could be future years too. Like, how much evaluation can actually happen and go on in terms of like what's to come in future years at that position to allow you guys to make the best decision on what you want to do? Like, how much are you actually weighing?
So we do, particularly with quarterback, we do look at those classes 2 years at a time as opposed to 1 year at a time. So it is something that we think about, but there's also a lot that changes from year to year. So it's not like that can necessarily be set in stone. Players take a step forward in their growth, some take a step back, and some come out of nowhere. So you can't necessarily use that as a hard and fast rule, but it is something that we like to have, we like to think about in the background.
Also, an update on JOK. Do you expect him to be here in 2025?
Yeah, so again, JOK's timeline, I think I mentioned the last time, it is a bit nebulous. He is progressing. But again, right now I don't have necessarily like a definitive date for you, Jeff. So,
Andrew, how do you see, you brought in Joe now and you have to get the thought process between putting those two together as your veteran guys, and then how are you going to run like who starts or whatever?
Yeah, so I'll answer your second question first, Terry. It's about breeding competition, and whatever that room looks like as we go into the spring, and then probably most importantly training camp. All those individuals will have a chance to compete to be the starter. In terms of Joe versus Kenny, Joe, I kind of mentioned earlier, he can fit a number of different spots in the room. We obviously know him well. He's an excellent play action passer. He functions kind of in our in our system. With Kenny, younger guy, mobile, very smart, protects the ball. Think there's more physical ability in him. A guy we did a lot of work on in that draft process, and obviously saw him twice a year when he was in Pittsburgh, and so we think there's more to get out of him there.
Colorado Showcase was a big deal for the organization. Obviously, pretty much everyone was there.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you guys feel it was so important to have everyone there, including Hazel?
Yeah, I think anytime you're picking this high, you're hoping this is going to be a player that's going to be with your organization for 15 years or something along those lines. And you're hoping to build a relationship with that player and his family for a long period of time. Like, no different than Miles, right? Miles, he'll retire as a Brown and, go into the Hall of Fame. And, we've known him since he's been 21 years old, known, Lawrence and Audrey since his college days. And that's a really special, relationship. And so you're only in these positions a handful of times, and we feel like it's important for us to establish those relationships early, not just when they just get into the building.
Do you envision trading any of your current veterans on draft weekend?
I wouldn't rule anything out, Mary Kay. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily like top of mind, but I think back a couple years ago with Troy Hill, we weren't necessarily going into the weekend thinking that was going to be an active trade. Martin was available in a trade back. We were able to shed some salary and get an additional pick, so it made sense for us at the time. I wouldn't rule again, being opportunistic out. Yeah.
Quarterback probably skewing younger, obviously, at the owners' meetings a couple weeks ago. And that along those lines, with Joe sort of coming back in the fold here, would you say that additions to that room at this point, pretty much you guys have your eyes more so on the draft than necessarily going out and looking in free agency to add maybe another veteran?
I wouldn't rule anything out. Like I'd say again, it's about if an opportunity comes up that makes sense, we'll take advantage of it.
All right, there you go. Your general manager, Andrew Berry, his pre-draft press conference from earlier today. Coming up next, Aaron Rodgers speaks. We will decipher. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Elk & Elk Serious Lawyers, Serious Injuries, 1-800-ELK-OHIO, free case review. Elk & Elk's proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Aaron Rodgers on McAfee saying that his sister asked him to set the record straight. Among the quotes, I'm in a different phase in my life. I'm 41 years old. I'm in a serious relationship. I have off-the-field stuff going on that requires my attention. I have a lot of things that are taking my attention and have been beginning in January away from football. That's where I've been focusing my attention on. Making a commitment to a team is a big thing. I've had a lot of great conversations with a lot of teams. Not one of those was the Jets. That wasn't a great conversation. I've been upfront with all of them. I told every one of the teams I've talked to, it's not about the money. I never once said I needed a multi-year deal. I'll play for a cent. I wasn't stringing anyone along. I wasn't holding anyone hostage. I'm open to anything, attached to nothing. Retirement could still be a possibility. He goes on. Ben Roethlisberger was on the show, I assume referring to Pat McAfee, saying I was waiting around for the Vikings. That's not accurate. Rodgers said that he had to – this is pretty amazing, this Jets stuff, that he flew across the country.
Yeah.
The Jets asked him to fly across the country, and then 20 seconds into a meeting, he was told by new coach Aaron Glenn, yeah, we're moving on. And he was like, you could have just called me with that, which I would agree with. Talked about talking with Brian Dable and a good conversation there. Obviously went out to Pittsburgh, tried to do this as quietly as possible. A lot of people think I'm desperate for attention. I flew into a different airport. I got a Malibu rental car, drove the Malibu rental car to the facility, backside practice field. That's cool. On Tomlin, he's more than I thought from afar. More than I thought of him from afar.
The Minnesota stuff, he says, I've known Kevin O'Connell forever. We have a great friendship. We talk outside of just football, and we've always had good communication.
So there's been no deadlines from the Steelers. I've talked to Mike T many times. The entire time I haven't felt like I owe anyone a decision on any point. This is my life now. I've been upfront with them about that. If you need to move on, you need to do something by all means. Said he will not let whatever happens in the draft impact his decision on this. In terms of working with DK Metcalf, I wanted to do due diligence. Part of it is talking to a guy like DK. Yeah. I guess McAfee asked him point blank, if you were to play again, would it be for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Rodgers, I'm trying to be open to everything and not attached to anything. When it comes to that decision, I'm not holding anyone hostage. He also said, I don't think it's fair to the Steelers or anyone while I'm dealing with a lot of off-field stuff. I want to keep the lines of communication open. The people he need to know.
What? Number one, it does feel like you're holding the franchise hostage. Now it's the Steelers, so I'm totally fine with that.
Let's just examine that one line, though. He said, the people who need to know. So maybe the people who need to know in Pittsburgh know. They're behaving as if they think he's going to play for them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to operate under that and maybe he's just saying there's some things I got to work out. But it feels like Pittsburgh is behaving as if they're going to have him. So when that line where he says the people who need to know, that tells me about all I need to know right now. He says I'm taking care of my people right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Jersey Jerry, who we love from Barstool. So we got nothing. Draft in a week, but not holding anyone hostage. Got it.
Yeah.
I think they know.
Something.
That's what I think. I think they know. I don't think it'll affect what they do at 21.
No.
If Shador Sanders falls to 21, maybe they take him. But I think they know Rodgers' intent. And my hunch is based on, their only way if they don't get him, they would then have to try and trade for Cousins, because I don't think they're going to go Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson after trading for DK Metcalf. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's my guess on how all of that goes. But that was Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee. Dane Brugler is going to join this show coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily. We're presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of Cleveland Browns on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back in. Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Ballybet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. 1 week from today, the first round of the NFL Draft. If you're watching on the stream right now, you know that I have in front of me the Beast, and the lovely G-Man has put this in a binder. The thing looks it's huge, and the man who wrote the Beast is the great Dane Bugler, NFL draft analyst at The Athletic. He joins us now on the Twisted Tea Hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Dane, have you ever done what G-Man did here with the Beast? Like he's got it in a binder. It's laminated. The thing's huge, buddy. It's like the old days. Like you go into like a library and you'd see like the dictionary that was 1 billion pages. That's what's in front of the desk right now, buddy.
I love it. That's awesome to hear. And honestly, that's the coolest part after it's released is I get a lot of people send me pictures about the way they printed it out, the way that they consume it and all that. And so you got a lot of reading to do between now and next week.
Buddy, I'm going to text you the picture. I'm going to text it to you now, and you can take a look at it for one. Okay. It's an incredible effort that was done, and it is it's everything you need about the draft. So let's get to it because you had your 7-round mock yesterday. Your Andrew Berry, the consensus is that Cam Ward goes 1. What do you do at 2?
I'm taking the best player in the draft, and that's Travis Hunter. It's kind of funny 2 weeks ago when the winds started to shift a little bit, and it seemed like Travis Hunter was kind of leaning towards being the pick for the Browns, and it was like this big news. Well, guys, he's the best player in the draft. Of course, he's someone the Browns have been considering this entire time, and it is interesting. I give Andrew Berry a lot of credit for being very open about how they would use him if he would indeed be the pick, saying that they view him as an offensive player that they would also want to use on defense as well. And it's interesting because other teams feel the opposite. They want to see him as primarily a corner, but you also work him in on offense. But I think it makes sense for the Browns. This is a team that ranked 32 in the league in offensive scoring, 32nd in third down conversion. So to give an offensive spark to this team makes a ton of sense. And Travis Hunter, the athleticism that he brings, the ball instincts, you bet on that every time.
Dane, let's take it both ways. At corner, where are the holes, if any, with Travis Hunter?
He's a little bit leaner than you want. Like he's not, and really that counts for both receiver and corner. Where at corner you're going to be making a lot more contact in terms of tackles on a down-to-down basis. At receiver, can you consistently get off physical defensive backs when they get hands on you at the top of routes? He's going to see a lot more press at the NFL level. So just the size, he has good height, good length, but in terms of the muscle on his frame, he's very lean in his lower half, just his legs and his limbs in general. So, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that carries 205 pounds. That's just not really how he's built. So just maximizing the strength that he does have and being physical. And so I don't question that he's not physical. It's just he's not going to be someone that easily gets off press with pure strength.
On the offensive side, which is what Andrew Berry says they view him as first, and then they would work him defensively, where are the holes with him as a receiver?
I think it's more about becoming more consistent as a route runner. I wouldn't call him a route technician by any means. You want to see him, because in the NFL, playing receiver is all about timing and salesmanship. Mm-hmm. You need to be on the same page with the quarterback, the same timing. It's almost like a dance. The footwork has to be precise. And it's just, you're a little bit off. The timing's off, throws the play off, the where the catch window is going to be a little bit off. So just being more consistent as a route runner, and just understanding how to manipulate the defensive backs. But, if anybody understands how to do that, it's a guy that also plays defensive back and understands what he's looking for in terms of tells by the receiver and different things like that. So you want him to become a more well-rounded player on offense. And he's always been the best athlete anytime he stepped foot on the football field. So, it's just a matter. And we find this is the case with a lot of top-tier athletes where maybe they were bigger, stronger than everybody else, or just purely a better athlete, faster. once you get to the NFL, there's a lot of athletes that are on the same level, and what separates everybody is the guys that do the football-specific traits, the technique and just the different savvy levels of playing the game. That's what separates you. And so just getting better in those areas. But, again, the ball instincts, the athleticism, those are the type of traits that you bet on.
You watched all the tape. I watched him play a lot. He had my Heisman vote last year. Mine is more anecdotal, but it didn't feel like if the ball was in the air, he ever lost it. And I meant that both offensively and defensively. It felt like his ball skills when he was playing corner and receiver were as good as I've seen. It seems like if the ball was in the vicinity, he got it.
That's exactly what I mean when I say ball instincts. It's different with him. He has such a good feel for it, and then because he is a little bit longer and he has really good hands, you don't see a lot of drops on his film. Anything close to him is his catch space. And so that is something that you want to take advantage of on both sides of the ball. Whether you put him at corner, you put him at receiver, he can be a 3-level threat. He can win down the field, but you also want to give him chances underneath where he can be a snatch and go type of guy. I think it's interesting when you talk about Travis Hunter as purely a receiver. Like, where would he rank in last year's? Because to me, he's corner 1 in this class. Yeah. He's also wide receiver 1 in this class. Right. But if you put him in last year's class, which was a top-heavy group at receiver, where would he rank? And so for me, I gave Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors basically the same grade at the top. And I think Travis Hunter is just the littlest bit behind those two guys, but ahead of Rome Odunze and Brian Thomas Jr., who both are really promising NFL receivers. So in a class like this where he's clearly the best guy, even last year where it was loaded at the top, he's right there in the mix with those top 5 receivers.
Dane, if it is Hunter at 2 and they follow the emphasis is going to start on offense and then it will lead to we'll work it in on defense. What, from your vantage point, all that you've watched of him, what should that plan look like? And when it goes to defense, is it corner right away? Obviously, it feels like you play man and you just put him in there at that, or is it something else? Is he maybe in the back end is just like a center fielder tracking down balls? What would your plan be for him?
Yeah, well, and that's why I liked him better at corner. If you're going to have a primary position and then a secondary position, and I liked him better as a full-time corner. I think his upside's higher there. I think 3-4 years from now, he could be a top 3 corner in the NFL, maybe sooner. Whereas on offense, I think he could be a top 10 receiver in the NFL. And so I certainly understand, why someone would prefer him on offense. But theoretically, it just seems easier to have a full-time defensive player, and then you mix in a package of 25-ish plays a game where you can get the ball in his hands 8 to 10 times a game. If he's going to be a full-time offensive player, it might be a little bit tougher to figure out how you're, mixing and matching your personnel to get him on the field. But look, if anybody can do it, it's this guy. And there's a reason we haven't seen it happen very often, if ever. It's very, very rare for a player to do this. But, Travis Hunter did it at a high level. He even played special teams in college. And so we talk about the athleticism and what it takes to do that, but I don't think enough is made of just a mental commitment. There's the conditioning part of this as well, but the mental commitment that it takes to understand the playbook, understand your responsibilities, all the work it takes during the week to be prepared, to be on the field 24/7 every single snap. That's just, it's taxing, but it looks very natural for him. And so, and talking to scouts, they kind of back that up with the interviews and what coaches say about him. He loves his fiance, he loves to go fishing, but football is right up there with his favorite things to do. And besides those 3 things, he doesn't have a ton of outside hobbies. So, if anybody can do it, it seems like Hunter's the guy that can do it.
Dane, if it's not Hunter at 2, what's the pick that you would go, okay, I get it?
Well, there's the top of the draft is 2 players. It's Travis Hunter and it's Abdul Carter. And I think you could, obviously with the quarterback position and just it's weighted a little bit differently. If Cam Ward were available at number 2, I 100% believe that would be the pick for the Browns. And then I think Ashton Genty from Boise State, the running back conversation is one that gets, I think, a little bit like, I understand not paying a running back, maybe that second contract, like a big money. I get that. But there's no reason why you can't draft a running back in the top 10, like especially one that's special, like Ashton Genty. He should be at least considered at that pick. It's not the direction I would go, but it should be at least considered. And then 4, 5, 6, Ashton Genty is going to be top of mind for all those teams. But Abdul Carter and the pass rush potential of him and Myles Garrett would be scary for opposing offenses, knowing you have to block both those guys. Abdul Carter with obviously coming off the stress fracture in his foot, so we don't have any testing information for him. But you just throw on that Notre Dame tape in the playoff and see him with a bum shoulder, basically playing hurt, just leaving it all out there and making an impact consistently. You don't need a squint to see that, all right, this guy's a difference maker, and the different ways he can get home, affect the quarterback, play the run. If he doesn't go 2, I bet he goes 3, and regardless, you're getting a good player.
All right. Before we get to the rest of your 7-round mock in terms of what the Browns have to do, I do not have it in front of me. What did you do with Shador? Where did you have him falling?
Oh, I had him going to the Steelers at 21. And, if he gets past the Giants are a wild card at 3. We know that. But if he gets past 3, which right now, a week out, I say he does, then it's Shador watch. And it's, okay, the Saints at 9 potential fit. I don't see that happening. And then so does he make it to the 20s? And with the Steelers at 21, we know their quarterback situation very much in flux right now. They brought in Shador for a 30 visit, so that's very much a possibility. And if it doesn't happen there, do we see a trade up from a team like the Browns, a team like the Giants, to get to 24, 25? To get Sanders or a different quarterback at that point. So it's going to be an exercise of quarterback musical chairs once we get into the back half of round 1.
All right, so in round 2, at the top of round 2, you have us taking Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. He's considerably lower on your overall. I think you have him 49th on your top 100 list, but going 33rd overall. And obviously, when it's a quarterback, you're going to get a big boost because of the importance of position. What do you like about Dart? And if the Browns go that way at 33, do you understand why?
Yeah, and he's a guy that ideally I would draft somewhere in the mid-second round and develop him because I think he's not ready to go out of the gate. Like, he's going to need a little bit of time. But, like you said, quarterbacks get a bump, and you have to draft them where you have to draft them. And if you like the player enough, then I don't think you have any problem taking him at 33 or even trading into the first round to make sure that you get him. He's a good-sized athlete, good arm, has all the tools. The intangibles are off the charts. The competitiveness that he plays with, his teammates love him, both offensive guys, defensive guys. I've talked to teammates that he on both sides of the ball that just raved about him as a leader and the way he connects with everybody on the roster. It doesn't matter if you're the top receiver or you're the backup safety. He's going to connect with all of you. Really productive at Ole Miss. And it just comes down to he played in a system that was a little more simplistic than what he's going to see in the NFL. And so can he make those full field progressions? Can he get to the backside read consistently? There were a lot of times where it was one read, drop your eyes, and then he's a really good athlete, and that shows on film. A lot of first downs with his legs. But in the NFL, it's like, okay, learn how to be a little more patient from the pocket, let those routes develop, and not just take off and run when the first hint of pressure starts to show. So there's going to be development needed here, but you see the tools, you see the intangibles, and I could certainly understand why you'd bet on that.
Yeah, I love everything about the idea of Ole Miss. I love Kiffin. I love the baby blue uniforms, the helmets, all of it. And I was rooting for him to get in the playoff. And so I'm watching the game at Florida, and I'm thinking to myself, you win this, buddy, and Ole Miss is dancing. They're in the playoff. And he threw one of the worst interceptions you're ever going to see in college football. And
the end of that game was rough.
It was brutal, man. It was brutal. And he played decent the week before against Georgia in a game that they won, which felt kind of set him up for this run. But I always go back to the end of that Florida game and going, wow. And I know everybody knows Lane's offense is pretty simplistic and everything that goes into it. When you say you have to – that's why maybe this situation would be good though, right, Dane? Because you've got Flacco here for a year, veteran presence. You got Pickett, who's a first-round pick. You would not be forced to throw him on the field, and it feels like he needs – quarterback finishing school.
Right, and I think there's going to be Bo Nix comparisons with him, and just they were in college for a long time, starters, transfers, all of that. They have some skill set similarities, so I get it. But Bo Nix is ready to go right away. Where with Dart, it will take a little bit of time, and you want to develop him at his own pace. You don't want to throw him in before he's ready. You don't want to force him onto the field out of necessity to see what you have. You have to let him develop. You have to be a little bit patient with him. So, and whether or not that's, the coaching staff's going to feel comfortable with that, that's kind of the $1 million question that we just don't know exactly how the Browns feel about him. But I can understand why ultimately he ends up somewhere in the top 35 picks.
If it's not Dart at 33, what other quarterback would make sense for you?
Well, if they're looking for more of a player that's ready to go, Tyler Shuck is a quarterback that a lot of NFL teams really like. And you see why. 6'4", 230 pounds, good athlete. He's a mobile guy, can move around. He throws with a lot of velocity on his ball. He's a power thrower. He's got some twitch in his throws. It's just that he's a seventh-year senior. He's going to be a 26-year-old rookie. And obviously, we know this team cares about age, but this is a unique circumstance. This isn't, this is a player who was injured a lot. This is the first time this past year at Louisville where he played more than 8 games in a season. And so the medicals need to check out. Now, if they're going to be willing to be a little more patient with the quarterback position and develop him, then Jaylen Milro becomes more of a possibility, who is explosive with his legs and some of his runs. And it's immediate speed too. It's not like build up speed. It's boom, blink, and he's gone.
Yeah.
And, you talk to some scouts and they say, it's going to take too long. Other scouts, give me the guy that's hard to defend. And that's Jaylen Milro. Because you watch the Wisconsin tape, you watch the Georgia tape, you see a guy that can stress the defense in all these different ways with his legs, with his arm. It's just, can he be more consistent as a passer? You throw on the Oklahoma tape and the Michigan game, and you see a guy with the pocket feel isn't quite there yet. The consistency with his mechanics and his accuracy, not quite there yet. So it will take a little bit of time, but you're encouraged by the raw traits, the fact that he does have a strong arm, he's an elite athlete, and he's a good-sized player. He's 220 pounds.
Yeah.
But also the fact that he's, he won the academic Heisman. He's a smart guy. And so, you feel good about the character that you're bringing in as well. So if you can be a little patient with the quarterback, you're going to be a lot more open to Jaylen Milro.
He's one of the more confounding guys for me because he played maybe the best quarterback game I saw all year in the Georgia win. And they really just had Ryan Williams, and their offensive line wasn't great. They didn't have a lot of weapons. A lot of their weapons transferred out, but they had 17-year-old Ryan Williams, and it was Milro, and Milro was unbelievable. And then you mentioned the Oklahoma film. Incompetent. They couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard with these guys to try to project. I think that's why it's so hard for these NFL teams too, buddy, because it's you see these flashes and you're like, is there more of that in there? Can we get that out of them? Or is what we saw at Oklahoma, is that Jaylen Milro? So you have to have the patience and you have to be incubated wherever you land.
You have to be honest with yourself as an evaluator about, okay, I love the idea of this, but what is the % chance that this is going to play out? And, you have to trust your coaching staff. You have to be in lockstep with your coaches that they feel the same confidence you do that you can develop the player. And it's why Andrew Berry makes the big bucks, right? He has to ultimately make the decision about, okay, which – talking to Coach Stefanski, talking to the rest of, his lieutenants around him, just being more confident about the quarterback they decide is the way to go. But being honest with themselves, if they do go Dart or Milro, that it might take a little bit of time and you're going to have to eat your vegetables in the meantime while you're developing these guys.
Dane, and we're talking to the great Dane Brugler. The Beast is available. His latest mock draft, 7-rounder, dropped yesterday, all available with The Athletic. Looking at your mock draft, and we don't need to go through every name on this list. The folks can do it, and they're there. But one thing that Nathan and I have been pretty consistent with was weapons. You're going to, if it follows your mock, you're getting one at 1, potentially quarterback of the future at 33. You went offensive tackle at 67, then edge after that. All of that stuff kind of checks out. But if you need to add weapons, and the Browns really need to add a couple of receivers. They need to add a back. They need to add a tackle. They need to add a quarterback. Let's just do running back. I think they need to add a tight end. Running back, tight end, receiver. Second round, third round, fourth round. Who are some guys you love in those spots?
All right. Well, here we're going to go to one school for all these answers. In the second round, I'd go Terrence Ferguson from Oregon, who is really athletic. He can get open. He's really clean at the catch point. Has some juice after the catch. I really like Terrence Ferguson from Oregon. He's to me one of the more underrated players in this draft.
Yep.
In the third round, running back Jordan James. Who was a big part of what Oregon was this year on offense, almost 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. He's a guy that's not a home run hitter. Like, he's not going to break off a 60-yard run, but he'll get you 6 consistently. And you love the no-nonsense run style that he brings. He understands the blocking scheme. He's patient, also has that short area burst where he's going to fit through tight holes. He's going to find the sticks. And just consistently pick up more yards than he should. And when both these guys, Jordan James, Bucky Irving, were on the field last year for Oregon in 2023, I thought Jordan James was the better running back, just watching them one after the other. And we saw the rookie year that Bucky Irving had. So big fan of Jordan James. And then in the fourth round, Ted Johnson, the smaller receiver. The size is a tough pill to swallow, 150 pounds, 55 pounds. He's not a big guy. But, you have to catch up to him first before you get hands on him. And that's kind of the difference with him is he's so quick, catches the ball well. He's a very natural receiver. For a guy that is so small on paper, he doesn't really play that small. He plays bigger than he looks. And so to get a weapon like that in the fourth round, I think would work for the team like this.
How much film do you watch for the Beast?
I couldn't quantify. I mean, it's a year-round thing. It really is. And it's talking to everyone I can, talking, scouts, coaches, players themselves. And then if I'm not on the phone or texting, I'm watching the film and trying to really, my job is to collect all the puzzle pieces and then put them together and try to give, if you know nothing about the player, hopefully collecting all the puzzle pieces or most of the puzzle pieces and putting together the picture will help just give a more clear idea of who each one of these guys are.
When does 2026 start?
It started a while ago.
Oh, already in.
Look, inevitably, you're watching tape and you're watching a certain player, but then someone catches your eye and you're like, oh, okay, this left tackle, I need to write him down. And you find out, he's not draft eligible until 2026. Or, you're talking to a scout and he brings up, oh, hey, make sure you get eyes on this guy. So inevitably, it starts way earlier than, it should, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. And, honestly, I need more than a full year to get this thing done.
It's one of the most comprehensive, impressive feats of information that I've seen, my friend. You do it every year. It's a stunning accomplishment. We are always so gracious of your time and thankful for it. Thank you for giving us a little bit of it today, bud.
No, I appreciate the kind words. Always fun hopping on with you, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
I'm sure we will. Yes, we will. The great Dane Bugler, NFL draft analyst at The Athletic, joining on the Twisted Tea hotline, presented by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily. We're presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Fans, this month's winner of the local business platform presented by Minuteman is Russell Standard. As a nearly 100-year-old family-owned business, Russell Standard's Akron plant helps supply asphalt emulsions, and performs preventative road maintenance to customers around the country. Check them out today, russellstandard.com. To learn more about the local business platform, visit browns.com/community/local business platform. Thing's unbelievable. The beast is unbelievable. What he does with it. It's
year in and year out.
Every year.
And G-Man had never seen it before. And
he had no idea what he's in.
You try to explain it, and then you go, there's no explaining it until you actually open the file and you see 542 pages.
Yeah. In the, when people used to go to libraries and you'd go to the library and you'd see on the podium the giant Webster's dictionary.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
That's that.
It would be opened up. Every word
comprehensive,
ever conceived.
Down to what the guy likes to do for hobbies.
Yeah,
he's a great euchre player. So and so is a champion. This
you wouldn't get it anywhere else. And I think about when I used to do the draft stuff with you guys and the stuff that you're going to do with the draft next week on the Cleveland Browns radio network. It's your lifeline, because look, I could have when we had Dane on, I could have went over these guys. I could have gone over. We did Hunter and Dart primarily, and then we did position kind of agnostic, but. I could have asked him about Ozzie Trapillo. I could have asked him about Savion Jones. I could have asked him about Jordan James and C.J. Dupree and Keandre Lambert-Smith and Nick Martin and Justin Wally and Marquise Single. Here's the deal. 99.9% of you out there listening don't know who any of those people are. And it doesn't mean their names don't mean anything to you until they become Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
When they become Cleveland Browns, then you need to know about them. Now what I look for in most of these mock drafts once you get past the first two rounds is positionally, does it make sense? Does this make sense from a position standpoint? So Dane having us go Travis at 2 overall, Jackson Dart at 33, offensive tackle at 67, edge at 94, running back at 104. Does that make sense with who we are? I think everything does there except for maybe edge, just because we have so many.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd go edge in the third round. Maybe I'd like to see tight end up in there in the third round, something like that. But there's still that positionally it makes sense. And what this supplies is the backstory on the guys you pick. And that's why and by the way, this comes with your subscription to The Athletic.
That right there pays for your subscription to The Athletic. That is worth every penny that you would pay to The Athletic.
Yeah. It's all-time stuff. So really good. And the draft is next week, and we'll see how it all shakes out. Are we good?
You're good.
We're good. All right. Let's go to a segment that was on the best podcast available. Here's the voice of the Cleveland Browns, Andrew Siciliano, and Gibbe sitting down with ESPN NFL draft analyst Field Yates.
Man, I would agree with that assessment of the name, and I'm doing great. It's good to catch up with you guys. I saw Andrew for a while in Indianapolis at the Combine. Always good to catch up, and it's an exciting time right now for the Cleveland Browns. You don't love the process of getting to the number 2 pick in the draft, but it's kind of fun to imagine the possibilities at number 2, especially in this year's draft class.
Yeah, I am over the process, I'll be honest with you. I'm with Andrew Berry, who said back in Mobile, I have no patience, let's get here.
Yeah.
But we're not there, at least not yet. But we are inside of 3 weeks. You were at Colorado Pro Day in Boulder. We'll get to Travis Hunter in a second, but let's do the quarterback first here. What did you see from Shador Sanders? And I guess maybe bigger picture here, Field. Did you see a guy that, I hate to use the word worthy because I'm not questioning the young man's personal value or worth. I like the kid. But did you see a guy worthy of the number 2 overall pick?
I went into the pro day hoping that my perspective on Shador Sanders would be pretty similar to what it was going into the pro day. I didn't want to go there and say, wow, I really underestimated the thrower, because I really feel like I put a lot of time into the evaluation of the film for the past 2 seasons, because I thought there was a chance he was going to come out during last year's draft as well. I also didn't want to go in there and say, man, that arm really isn't what I expected it to be, and maybe I've overestimated where he's going to go in the draft. And I kind of felt the same coming out as I did going into it. You wanted to see the accuracy. It was all there on display. We can quibble over the value of pro day statistics, but I'm just here to tell you the ball did not hit the ground often during this throwing session. On top of that, was I expecting to see a howitzer arm? Was I expecting to see Josh Allen out there in terms of arm strength? No. Did I? No. So Shador Sanders' path to success in the NFL as a pocket passer is going to be playing on time and playing in an offense that sort of affords receivers or requires receivers to be where they're supposed to be at the time they are supposed to be there. I can see that path working for Shador Sanders. He has been my quarterback 2 throughout the process. I've got him as the 16th player overall on my big board. So, personally, I'd be more comfortable with that player maybe around the middle of the first round, but we've all also been around long enough to know that there is a quarterback tax that kind of throws your overall grades out the board. If you love the player enough to take him at 16 and you're picking at 2, then you probably should consider taking him at number 2 overall because he likely won't be there at pick 33.
Here's my question, Field. When you take a look at all these quarterbacks, is there a bigger gap between 1 and 2, or is there a bigger gap between 2 and 3?
Yeah. I think 1 and 2 is the biggest gap because I would say this, it only takes one team to determine the order of quarterbacks 2, 3, and 4. But while I think Shador Sanders is going to be the second quarterback taken, I'm not totally convinced that is the case. I wouldn't be stunned if Jackson Dart ends up being the second quarterback taken somewhere in the first round. I don't know that, but again, we'll see in just over 2 weeks from right now. Cam Ward has become solidified as QB1 for the Titans. And I would say this, I can't pull everybody, but I've asked almost every evaluator that I have spent time talking about the draft with over the past 7 or 8 months. What's your view of the top of the quarterback class? And it's been hard to find many dissenters from Cam Ward as quarterback 1. Does that mean the others aren't capable of becoming really good players? No. I mean, last year at this time, many of the prominent voices believed Caleb Williams was quarterback 1, but also viewed Jayden Daniels as Drake May and as the kind of guys that you could win a lot of games with. And 1 year in, if we were to redo it all again, Jayden Daniels probably goes number 1 overall. Now, it's kind of silly to bother redoing drafts just 1 year after them. A lot of these guys deserve plenty more grace than is afforded through just one season. But I do feel as though it's 1 gap, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 2, 3, kind of in a, let's have a thoughtful conversation about why each player could be the best of this group.
Talking to Field Yates here, it's fascinating because I was talking to one NFL assistant coach over the weekend on the defensive side of the ball, scouting defensive players, but happened to turn on some Cam Ward tape looking at defensive guys. And he said, hey, the guy's good, but like I don't see Jayden Daniels.
Sure.
I question. Look, he has athletic ability. Certainly, he doesn't have the same escapability, the same utility in the run game that Jayden Daniels had last year. But that is the bar now because you have the second overall pick, and the year before that, with the second overall pick down in Houston and C.J. Stroud, where those guys come in and they are franchise changers. And I keep telling people, and I know, Field, you know this, that just because you take a quarterback at 2 doesn't mean he's a guy who should be the second overall pick if you're merely drafting for need here. After the pro day, because your last mock was before the pro day, your mock had Shador at 3, Jackson Dart at 21, but you just hinted there you think Dart may go before Shador. Do you see a Shador fall coming?
I think it's like, I would say, I still think it's like 80% likely Shador is quarterback 2, but I've given myself like some wiggle room to think that Jackson Dart could be quarterback 2. A fall, sort of. I think if you told me to make a pick right now, top of my head, if I were to redo a mock draft off the top of my head, I think I'd have Shador going 21 to Pittsburgh, which is a big fall for number 3. But the most logical next suitors for Shador after the Giants at 3, I mean, the Saints would be the most obvious one, and I haven't gotten the impression that the Saints are as enamored with Shador Sanders. Now, Deion Sanders basically told us that he likes the colors black and gold, and wearing Colorado black and gold while saying that. So maybe he thinks, or maybe he knows the Saints are preparing to take him at number 9. I haven't gotten quite that same strong sense, but he would know better than I.
All right, Phil, I want to get to Travis Hunter real quick. Again, talking to Field Yates, who was in Boulder last Friday. I want to pull up the quote because when you were on with Louis Riddick afterwards, you said, quote, moves like any other athlete I've ever seen about Travis Hunter. The pro day looked that good in person as it looked to us on TV for Travis Hunter.
It really did. And, I mentioned earlier how I wanted the pro day for Shador Sanders to look about like I expected it to look going into it. With Travis Hunter, because I already had him as the number one player on my board, I said to myself, I'm okay with being blown away even more than I already was with the player. And I've used this analogy before, but, sitting there watching people from various organizations hone in on Travis Hunter, it looked like an adoring parent on the sideline of one of their kids' games, just like, in awe of what they were accomplishing in that moment, even though Travis Hunter was, in just cleats and a t-shirt and shorts, but such a natural mover, so sudden as well. I mean, effortless, his feet, the foot quickness is off the charts. He went no gloves for the workout, which not that there's a requirement you got to wear gloves in the NFL, but how many wideouts are going no gloves in today's league? I'm sure Travis will wear gloves like he did during his college career, but it was just a testament to how natural of a hands catcher he is as well. The ball rarely hit the ground. It didn't during the workout when the ball was intended for Travis Hunter and he had a chance to catch it. So just such a natural playmaker, unlike really any that I can recall. And, Mel Kiper Jr. has been doing this for 47 years now. He said that Travis Hunter is his favorite player to study in that time. So that's just an example of the kind of upside you might get if you bring Travis Hunter aboard.
Would you go more plays on offense or more plays on defense? It's
probably
if you're an NFL team.
A little bit team dependent, right? But two things here. So I'll get to the Brown side of it in a moment. But the feedback that I've gotten from teams, and I really got during my time at Colorado asking about Travis Hunter was, I understand why people want to hatch the plan for what it's going to look like with Travis. We're more focused in on this guy's just so unusual and so incredible that we'll just figure it out. He's too good at both spots to think that he won't play on both sides of the ball, but maybe we get in there and we're telling ourselves, 30 snaps a game on both sides of the ball. Next thing you know, he's, a top 10 wide receiver as a rookie, and he's made 3 game-changing interceptions for us. He's just that unique of a prospect where he's not going to be put into a box. For the Browns, just right now, if they had to roll out the football and play tomorrow, I think probably has more impact as a wide receiver because beyond Jerry Jeudy, still looking for a lot of answers there. But I still think there's a chance that if they play tomorrow, Jim Schwartz is arguing with Tommy Rees, hold on, I get him now. Give me 20 snaps now, because I do think he's going to end up having a meaningful impact on both sides of the ball.
And I think a couple of months ago, this pre-draft process has been dragging on. A couple of months ago, Field, I heard, well, I don't know, can the guy play corner at 175 pounds in this league consistently? Even though, like Ryan Clark this morning, your colleague said he's a Hall of Fame talent on the defensive side of the ball, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, it is.
But he looked more rocked up Friday, didn't he? I don't what? Did he put on 10 pounds? Did anyone ask?
He was 187 at the combine.
Okay.
So he's clearly been spending some time in the weight room. And I would just say, last year there was a big conversation about Jayden Daniels and the frame that he had and whether he was just, one big hit waiting to happen away from, a significant injury. Well, Jayden got rocked last year in that Carolina game, left early in a game that they were up so big that they just said, let's just think about next week. And then remember, he was not going to play against the Bears in the 1-versus-2 game, and then played, and of course threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game to win that game. Thinking back to last year, the people at LSU really confident in the body type of Jayden Daniels. He has this almost elasticity to him that he can handle and absorb much more contact than a typical 206-pound quarterback could. I think Travis kind of fits into that mold as well. These slender-looking wide receivers who, yes, they're not built like Hines Ward out there, but they are so tough and understand how to avoid contact so well that they probably miss out on some of those big hits more than the typical wide receiver does.
When you take a look at some of the other draft positions in this one, obviously running back comes to mind, tight end as well. Those are 2 positions of need for this football team. Obviously, we could take a look. It's probably day 2, even not day 3, but some names maybe that stand out for the Cleveland Browns, both at the tight end position, at the running back room that could be available.
Yeah, running back's got a lot of options here. So day 2, I think Omarion Hampton slides into round 1 from North Carolina. Mel, much more optimistic than I am that he's going to be maybe a top 12 pick. I think it's maybe more late first for Omarion Hampton, but if he's there at 33, that'd be an interesting name for sure. Caleb Johnson from Iowa. probably late 2, early 3. Obviously, it'd have to be early 3 for the Browns if they stand pat at that pick. Ran a 4.57 40 at the combine, but man, this guy was a great player at Iowa during his last season, a factor in the passing game as well. On day 3, there's kind of all kinds of names, and it's really like, what do you want in your back? If Nick Chubb remains off the roster and you're saying to yourself, we need some power from our back. We need a guy who, we can hand the football off in some nasty lake effect weather in late December and just let him, chew up 20 carries. Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State 2 years ago was unbelievable. This year really fell off. If you're looking for the opposite of that, a guy who you might only want 7 to 10 touches per game, but those 7 to 10 touches might average 10 yards a pop. Jaden Blue from Texas comes to mind for me. Really, really impactful player for them last year. Has to be better in the ball security department. From tight end, a lot of options there. I do think in round 2, Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Miami tight ends have treated Cleveland relatively well of late with, of course, the Chief David Njoku there. Mason Taylor, the son of Jason Taylor. Of course, played his college ball in the great state of Ohio, so perhaps there's some serendipity there. And then going into day 3, Luke Lachey from Iowa, Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame. Like, there are a lot of guys at that spot compared to other classes where maybe the top of the draft represents like 4 or 5 clear starting tight ends, but the second tier of tight ends in this class can be very serviceable tight end twos, which is what the Browns need, right? They have David Njoku to be the focal point of their tight end room.
All right, great stuff with Andrew, Gibbe, and Field on that. For the rest of the interview, be sure to subscribe to the best podcast available wherever you get your podcasts or watch the episode on youtube.com/Browns. So much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, presented by Bally Bet, official sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Looking for more ways to connect with the Dog Pound? Spoil a furry friend in your life? Join the Barking Backers presented by Milkbone, the Cleveland Browns fan club for dogs. View membership options and join today at barkingbackers.com. The next level, it's coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.